Hello guys, welcome again to our part 3 video about understanding sync in SharePoint and OneDrive. So basically what I'm showing you right now is explaining the difference between the SharePoint Plan 1 and the SharePoint Plan 2, in which I stopped in the second video. Please go and watch it. So in the various subscription band as it relates to SharePoint and OneDrive, you could be on a business plan, as you can see on the screen. You could be on an enterprise plan, an educational plan, a government plan, or a finance plan. So the kind of subscription that you make here varies, and the licenses that gives you access to services also varies. It's important to note here, basically, that the subscription, okay, of the business plan comes with SharePoint Plan 1. The enterprise plan E1 comes with Plan 1, as you can see. The educational A1 plan, A1 series comes with Plan 1, and so on. So when we're comparing the difference between the SharePoint Plan 1 and the SharePoint Plan 2, has basically to do with the storage capacity. So by default, they come with 1 terabyte free, the Microsoft gives. However, you can only increase the storage of a SharePoint Plan 2 license. You cannot increase the storage of a SharePoint Plan 1. So if you're trying to force a sync when you have a SharePoint Plan 1, it's going to throw errors. That's what I'm trying to go to. What will you do in such an instance? What you would do in such an instance would be to immediately use or leverage on SharePoint site, because each SharePoint site a single user creates comes with 1 terabyte as well. So, as an administrator of the organization, it's your duty to properly structure how your users create SharePoint sites. So, for example, you could block the access generally, all right, and put a policy of not to trust anybody. It saves you a lot of stress because they can mistakenly create things that could cause security issues to the organization. So you want to have a good control on that. So what you would do, all right, is to ensure that people raise a ticket to you so that you can create a SharePoint site for them. Ask them what they want to use it for, properly structure it, and create permissions and every necessary settings such as external sharing if you want to disable that on each SharePoint site. So let us assume that they have access. So what you would just do will be to let them utilize or leverage the fact that every single user on a tenant who has a license assigned can access SharePoint and utilize SharePoint storage. So you can have SharePoint storage and OneDrive at the same time. So if the sync client has reached capacity where it can no longer synchronize from the cloud to the local machine, then you can leverage a SharePoint site on the cloud alone. Okay, so I hope you understand this point. Now let's go basically into the limitations that we see that we could see. So for the limitations, basically, all right, one of the limitations that we have when it comes to SharePoint and OneDrive sync, all right, has to do with. So let me bring it up for you. Let me bring it up for you. Let me bring it up for you. Okay, so I'll come back here to this user. Okay, all right, and I'm on the SharePoint site. All right, so good. So I'm going to open the article that says restrict restriction. Okay, restriction of what SharePoint and so that's where SharePoint and OneDrive limitations. So let's see this article together and I would explain it as it's not all case scenarios that are reproducible because of certain factors. Okay, wait for it to load. Good. So this article contains information about the restrictions and limitations that apply to files, file names, and file types. So what does it mean by file types? Things like .doc, which is a Microsoft Word file type, .pdf, which is a PDF file type, and so on. File names. So, for example, on this my site, I have the name contract awards as the name I gave to what to this particular file. Please pay attention here. On the OneDrive, I have folder A as the name I gave. Okay, you get the point. So that's what it means by file names. Then files. So the kind of files. So folders and files, right? Generally. So files could also be other kind of file types, right? Like the .exe, .jpeg, and so on. Okay. Now it says this article contains information about the restrictions and limitations that apply to files, file names, and file types when syncing with OneDrive for home, OneDrive for work or school, or SharePoint in Microsoft 365. So OneDrive for home is your personal OneDrive. OneDrive for work or school is OneDrive for business. SharePoint in Microsoft 365 is a SharePoint site. Please note, if you're looking for restrictions and limitations that apply to the earlier versions of OneDrive, it tells us we can use this article. So before OneDrive for Business was released, we had what we call the Groove. So the Groove basically was the initial OneDrive where it had a different unique icon. So what's new? Let's scroll and skip that, and we come to the restrictions, guys. So this is what causes your sync issues. All right. So if I go to invalid characters, so what does it mean by invalid characters? The limitations and the troubleshooting steps. So for the invalid characters, we have file upload and download size. Okay, and then the troubleshooting steps is OneDrive system requirements. So let's scroll further down to the breakdown of invalid characters. So here it says certain characters have special meanings when used in file names in OneDrive and SharePoint. Windows and Mac OS, such as the asterisk for wildcards and the backslash in file name paths. So, for example, you can see all the special characters. If I include them in my naming convention, it's going to throw a sync error. Guys, that's what it's saying. So whether you're a Mac user or you are a Windows user, it's going to throw an error. So the moment the sync client or the sync agent is already showing signs that there is a sync problem, please confirm and follow that error message that comes up. So it says here that if a file or folder you are trying to upload to OneDrive contains any of the characters listed below, I've highlighted it. What happens? It may prevent files and folders from syncing. So I've spoken to some customers who said, no, 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 Obi, no, no. And that's when I was still a support engineer. So said, no, 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 Obi, it was working before. It was working before, and I had this particular character together with my file names. In fact, uh, the administrator who I was speaking with apparently They were performing a migration, and after a series of constant trial to migrate their contents, all right, to the cloud, it did not go. It kept on throwing an error. Mhm. So after further investigation and all that, I just asked her a simple question, and by the time we checked the error message, it just led us straight directly to where the problem was coming from. Although it wasn't invalid characters, but their own was a different kind of problem. It was the length of the names used for their folders. So they had nested folders inside nested folders. That was ridiculously a very complex, folder structure that they had. But they were very comfortable and knowing where what was where. Then I told her, I said, you see, this particular structure would cause a big problem in your migration. Okay. Sorry if I'm deviating. I'm talking about migration. We're talking about sync here. So you get the point that if there is such a problem here, it's going to give you a problem. Now it says note to rename a file or folder in Windows, you can follow the prompt. Now it says some organizations don't yet support asterisk and wildcard in names. Now, if you are a global admin or SharePoint admin, see enabling on the SharePoint log. All right, so we can check this out later on. I'll put this in the description. Now, for Office Desktop Win 32 apps, if you're saving an Office file via the Backstage view to a OneDrive or SharePoint folder, you won't be able to save the file if the folder name contains a semicolon. So there are other details in this particular note telling us that there are additional characters that we cannot use in our naming convention. Simple and straightforward. The next one is invalid file or folder names. So look at the folder names here. Now, these names are not allowed for files or folders. As of today that I'm recording, it's not allowed. It may be allowed by Microsoft later on, or it's not allowed, right? It definitely because some of these uh, are keywords when it comes to computing. They are keywords. They are things that could already be used by the operating system, not just only for the local machine, but even for the application itself, guys. So we have keywords like .lock, .con, .prn, aux, null, and so on that are not allowed. They are not allowed, guys. They are not allowed. They are not allowed. Okay. So invalid or blocked file types. You see. So invalid or blocked file types. So this is giving us a scenario where a file type has pretty much been blocked. Let's take a look. Files that are used by your local computer, such as desktop.ini on Windows or .ds underscore store on macOS, don't normally sync. If these files do get uploaded to OneDrive during a migration, the sync app will delete the cloud copy and leave the local copy. I think this is very straightforward, guys. It's very straightforward. Now let's see here. If you are a OneDrive for work or school user, which invariably means OneDrive for business, some file types may be blocked on your organization's SharePoint site. The list of blocked files will vary depending on your administrator. So let me show you where this is done. Let's go then. So I'm going to switch to my global admin. So I'll switch to my global admin profile and navigate to SharePoint Admin Center. What do I want to show you again? I want to show you where the administrator, which could either be the global admin or the SharePoint admin can block certain file types from being uploaded or accessed in SharePoint and ecosystem. Okay, so I've navigated to SharePoint Admin Center. Please note that this can only be accessed by the global admin or the SharePoint administrator. If you're a Teams admin, you can access this. Or if you're a Teams admin, an Exchange admin, a service desk admin, you cannot access this. You will have to grant yourself the role in Microsoft 365 Admin Center, or you speak to your global admin to elevate your role. Okay, so here, if I navigate to policies on the left hand side and go to access control, under access control, where we manage different things, we can come here. Mm, that's not here. Where you okay, okay, let's see. Yada 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 yada. Hmm. Excellent sharing. Has the position changed? Oh, we have here allow limited. Hmm. Okay. All right. Let's go back to our article, and it says types of files that cannot be added to at least a library. Okay, I'm gonna find it out before this video ends. Okay, so OneDrive were blocked on the organization SharePoint site. Okay, on the SharePoint site. Okay, it says for security reasons, a number of file names and extensions cannot be uploaded since they are executable used by SharePoint server or used by Windows itself. Okay, I will show you, or I will add it to the description. Now, we have network or mapped drives. So you cannot add a network or mapped drive at your OneDrive sync location. OneDrive does not support syncing using symbolic links or junction points. All right, so we also have sharing. Good. Now you can say here sharing. You cannot share this item because too many items are in the folder. So, for example, where we actually share a particular folder, and inside the folder contains over 50,000 items. You can see here it says when sharing a folder, the total number of sub items contained within it and its subfolders is limited to 50,000. This was actually one of the problems that another customer was having, and then it was as a result of the nesting structure model that they were running there, folder inside folder inside folder inside file. It's so very complicated, so it was more than 50,000. Okay, to overcome this restriction, move some items into another folder. Straightforward. Here it says you cannot break inheritance for this item because there are too many items with unique permissions in this list or library. Okay, the supported limit of unique permissions for items in a list or library is 50,000. The supported limit of unique permission is 50,000. However, the recommended general limit is 5,000. Making changes to more than 5,000 uniquely permitted items at a time takes longer. So you could have a sync problem that keeps getting into a loop. That is what I mean is the moment you start your synchronization, it goes endlessly, right? It goes endlessly. You can, in fact, it can be syncing for days. I mean, that is a very, terrible situation. It's caused by this. When you have like, you're syncing a library from a SharePoint or a list from a SharePoint, when you have a situation, guys, that the unique permission in it is more than 5,000, you're going to encounter serious loop problem. It's just going to get into a loop and it's going to take long. It's eating up your RAM, CPU, and the rest. It's going to make your entire system slow and if possible crash. So we also have the option that says shared with me. You cannot synchronize the shared with me view grouping of files from a OneDrive work or school account. So let me show you where that is. So if I go to OneDrive and I click on shared, this is what it's talking about. It says you can't synchronize this. Okay, that's what it's saying. Shared with me. Now another one says delivery has failed to these recipients or groups. Error when sharing. Okay. Now how many OneDrive accounts? Number of OneDrive accounts. There are a limit to the number of accounts that can be concurrently signed in and syncing. Like what I did in the first video where I synced two OneDrive accounts. So it's telling us that there's a limit. Each device is allowed a maximum of one OneDrive for home account and nine. Look at it here, guys. OneDrive for work or school accounts, which invariably means OneDrive for business. Now, for Mac devices, only a single business account from the same organization can be in sync at any given time. Wow. So for MacBook is just one, for um, Windows is nine. Now we have OneDrive guest accounts. Synchronizing content using an external or guest user is supported by OneDrive. Okay, and yes, and that's because of the B2B sync. We can add the guest users on our Active Directory, guys. That's what it means. We can add them to our Active Directory. Okay, so we can add them to our Active Directory. Okay, we can add them to our Active Directory. So we have OneNote. Now, limitations. This is where I want to go to. So look at the limitations here, guys. The sync limitation for upload is 250 gig. If the items that you are uploading from your local machine to the cloud via your sync client, because it's going to use your sync client, it is 250 gig. If it's more than that, it's going to throw a sync error. The download is also 250. Individual files. Yes, you could have a video file that could be very large, okay? Or series of video files that could amount to more than 250 gigabyte. Um, the outcome is that it throw an error if it's more than 250 gigabyte. Files within a zip, if the size is also 250 gig for upload and download, it's going to throw an error. Please take note of these parts here that I'm highlighting. These limits applies to files, not your total storage. For any file larger than a few gigabytes, we recommend using the OneDrive Sync app rather than the website upload feature. Okay, so here we talk about file name and path lengths. Now this is what you can see. The file names and path lengths simply tells us if the path is more than 400 characters. So this is a path, an example of a path. If it's more than 400 characters, it will throw a sync error. Straightforward. The path length also has a very vital part to play. In addition to the above, if files are synced to a PC or Mac, the following limitations apply. Each segment of the path, okay, cannot be more than 255 characters due to operating system limitations. Okay, so look at what it means here, guys. The length of OneDrive root folder, for example, this is the root folder. The relative part of the file up to 400 characters cannot be more than 520 characters in total. It cannot be more than 520 characters in total. Okay, so we have thumbnails review. We have number of items that cannot be synced or copied. All right, and we have libraries with specific columns and metadata. So this article is very helpful and useful for troubleshooting, for running a SARA recovery, assistant troubleshooting to find out which particular area the sync may be having a problem. All right. So what I advise people to do is to enable file on demand, in which everything goes back to the cloud, so you don't need to always have a copy on the local machine as well. All right. So I hope this was helpful. We have fixed sync issues with personal OneDrive here. So you can fix issues with personal OneDrive here. Following this article, it's very helpful. Okay, and it's just going to show you basically how to fix these issues. So I'm going to put these two articles in the description. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope it was understandable, as simple as possible to you. Please leave a comment, all right, on how it was helpful to you. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Please turn on the bell, the notification by selecting the bell icon. All right, so you'll be notified when next I upload a video. I hope this series has been great so far. Kind of watch the first video, the second video, and you have a consistent understanding of the subject matter. All right, thank you so much for your time, and see you in the next video. Ciao.